A research trial through the federal government's Caring for Our Country program is showing Queensland dairy farmers ways to improve their fertiliser efficiency, in turn delivering on-farm productivity and reducing nutrient loss into waterways.
And what we want to have is we want to have the nitrogen release, whether it's from the NTEC product or your organic matter or whatever you have. You want that nitrogen release to match your plant demand, and that's how you get best nitrogen use efficiencies. In the dairy industry, you're sort of doing it pretty good already. You've got a lot more flexibility. You can put on, you can go and spread urea over pastures, every month or so. Obviously in cropping there's a bit more issues with actually getting onto the paddocks, particularly when it's wet. But like these sort of enhanced efficiency fertilisers, that's basically the aim, is to match plant uptake with nitrogen demand.
The trials are providing data that will enable farmers to better match their nitrogen fertiliser application to their soil's needs and the conditions, greatly enhancing nitrogen use efficiency.
Well, we've already showed that the NTEC is an economically viable alternative to normal urea. We saw good production gains from the NTEC product where we have to add less fertiliser. That also has a flow-on effect that there's less greenhouse gas emissions, N2O emissions being lost from that as well. So hopefully there's a couple of things they can put less on, so it's more economically viable. They get more production, but also they have to put it on less frequently, and it saves diesel, labour, those sort of costs as well. So hopefully what they can get away from is they don't necessarily have to put so much fertiliser on if they use one of these enhanced efficiency products, and it should still be, even though they are at a premium, they should still be economically viable.
Cedar Pocket farmer Rod Thefts has already switched to using NTEC fertiliser after seeing the trials at his property.
From what the results have shown, we can see that NTEC is showing us that it's worthwhile using. We also, you can see the results from organic fertiliser is compared to the urea. You've got to put a lot more on.
Nitrogen losses can also be substantially reduced by having application rates and timing that suit the soil moisture conditions, the irrigation potential and predicted rainfall.
So it'd be nice to have an average year, but I don't think there's such a thing. Each year has its challenges, and actually last year it did show us that there was a big proportion of nitrogen that's already in the system that does become available if you have these dry conditions. So the amount of nitrogen that's actually stored in the organic matter, in the thatch layer, in the roots of the plants does become available. Of course, it's sort of, you'd expect an even greater effect, a positive effect from these enhanced efficiency fertilisers if it was wetter. So even if we do come across an effect when it's quite dry like it is now, if we see it, we should expect an even greater effect if you have even more rain. Of course, it would be great to have some more rain to sort of show that off, but just the science behind it tells us that it should actually be enhanced following even more rain. If we look at the bottom graph then, that's just during the ryegrass season. So that's from April to November. And what we actually saw here was a pretty substantial influence of the fertiliser. So you hope that you're putting your nitrogen fertiliser on, you hope it's doing something. So it's a pretty obvious result, but I can now confirm that. But what we actually saw was at the high rate of fertiliser, we have a 75% increase in yield. So, putting on the fertiliser does actually pay dollars, which is nice to know. But what we actually saw, and what was most interesting, I suppose, was even though the urea increased, production increased linearly, so basically went up in a straight line. So if we doubled our fertiliser, we doubled our dry matter yield. The DMPP, so the NTEC product, at the lower rate was almost as high as at the higher rate. So the NTEC product at 23 kilograms of nitrogen per hectare was almost as good as the urea at 45 kilograms of nitrogen per hectare. By increasing our NTEC application marginally above what we added, which was at 23, so we increased that only by 2 kilograms per hectare per application, we actually get 90% of our maximum yield, which was at the 45 kilograms of urea. So we actually get very comparable yields. We just have to increase that slightly with the DMPP, with the NTEC product, to get very similar to our maximum yields. Which, if you then compare the equivalent price of urea versus, so 45 kilograms of urea versus 26 kilograms of NTEC, the NTEC comes out 66% more profitable. So I suppose that's the take-home message. The NTEC works because you can basically put it on at a lower rate.
The trials have provided data that can help farmers with management decisions that will ultimately give them greater opportunity for harnessing agronomic gains in nitrogen use efficiency and increasing milk production.